When the Galactic Council sends Ambassador Vex'thaal to evaluate humanity's military capabilities, he expects to witness primitive aggression and barely controlled violence. Instead, he encounters something far more unsettling. Humans who can command apex predators with a single word. What begins as a routine inspection of a human military outpost spirals into a revelation that challenges everything the galaxy thought it knew about pack dynamics, dominance hierarchies, and the terrifying evolutionary advantage that makes humans the most dangerous species in the known universe. This isn't a story about humanity's weapons or their warships. This is about something far more primal, far more absolute. And by the 12 Suns, Ambassador Vex'thaal is about to learn why you never ever underestimate a species that can make killers heal. Listen, I've been doing this job for 47 standard cycles. 47. That's longer than most species take to develop interstellar travel, and in that time, I've evaluated the military capabilities of 93 different civilizations. I've seen the Krillnax battle formations that can shatter moons. I've watched the safari phase dancers move through solid matter like it's a polite suggestion. I've even survived witnessing the thorax feeding frenzy, which, let me tell you, is not covered by standard diplomatic insurance. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the humans. My name is Vex'thaal, Third Circle Ambassador for the Galactic Council's Military Assessment Division, and the report I'm about to file will probably get me sent to a psychiatric evaluation facility. Honestly, at this point, I'd welcome it. The whole disaster started 3 rotations ago when the Council decided that humanity needed a proper military inspection, standard procedure for species applying for full Council membership. Show us your troops, demonstrate your tactical capabilities, prove you won't accidentally blow up half the galaxy the moment we give you voting rights. Simple stuff. They assigned me because of my stellar record. Decorated, professional, unshakable. Yeah, well, we'll see how that holds up. The human military installation was on Earth, in a region they call Colorado, mountains everywhere, thin atmosphere, and a training facility that sprawled across several square kilometers. My shuttle touched down on their landing pad at precisely 0800 hours, because humans are obsessive about punctuality in the most irritating way possible. Captain Storm was waiting for me, tall for a human, with dark hair pulled back in what they call a regulation bun, and eyes that assessed me with the kind of professional detachment that suggested she'd seen stranger things than a 3-meter-tall reptilian diplomat stepping off a shuttle. "Ambassador Vex'thaal," she said, extending her hand in that bizarre human gesture of greeting that involves grasping appendages like you're checking for weapons. "Welcome to Fort Hawthorne. I'll be your liaison for this inspection." I took her hand carefully. Human skin is disturbingly warm and soft, lacking any proper scales or protective plating. How they survived their evolutionary period without decent armor is beyond me. "Captain Storm," I replied, proud that I only mangled the pronunciation slightly. Human names sound like someone coughing through a windstorm. "I trust your facility is prepared for a thorough evaluation." "Oh, we're prepared, sir." Was that a smile? That looked like a smile. Humans smile for approximately 47 different reasons, and I've learned to my detriment that most of them are lies. We've got quite the demonstration lined up. She led me through the compound, pointing out various structures with the enthusiasm of someone showing off a new hatchling. Barracks here, training grounds there, vehicle depot over that way. All very standard, all very boring. Then I heard it. A sound that triggered every single survival instinct my species developed over millions of years. Deep, rumbling. The kind of vocalization that says, in no uncertain terms, "I am a predator, and you are potentially food." I stopped walking. My crest flared involuntarily, a threat display I hadn't used since my adolescent years. "Captain," I said, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will, "what was that noise?" "Oh, that?" She glanced toward a nearby building, with what I can only describe as fondness. Actual fondness. "That's just the canine unit. Kennels right over there. Want to meet them?" No. The answer was no. The answer had always been no. would always be no, was written into the fundamental fabric of the universe as no. Certainly, I heard myself say, because diplomacy is a curse that overrides common sense. The building she led me to was utilitarian, all concrete and chain-link fencing. Inside, I could hear multiple creatures moving, their claws clicking against hard floors. The predator smell hit me like a plasma bolt, musky and wild, and absolutely terrifying. "These are our Belgian Malinois," Captain Storm said, stopping in front of a large pen. "Military working dogs. Best in the business." I stared. Inside the enclosure were 6 of the most efficient killing machines I'd ever seen. Compact bodies built for speed and power, jaws designed to crush bone, eyes that tracked movement with frightening intelligence. Each one was easily capable of taking down prey 3 times their size. "Those," I said carefully, "are apex predators." "Well, yeah," she said it like I'd just announced that water is wet. "That's kind of the point. They're trained for detection, apprehension, and patrol work." One of the creatures approached the fence, and I took an involuntary step backward. It was young, maybe not fully grown, but already radiating that particular energy that screams danger to anyone with functional survival instincts. "This little guy is Maverick," Captain Storm said, reaching through the fence to scratch the thing behind its ears. Behind its ears, she was petting a predator, like it was a domestic comfort animal. "He's 8 months old, still in training." Maverick made a pleased sound, his tail moving in rapid oscillations. Then he noticed me, and those eyes locked onto my position with laser focus. I'd been prey-stared before. It's an occupational hazard when you're evaluating species with predatory backgrounds. But this was different. This wasn't aggression or hunger. This was assessment, calculation. This juvenile predator was trying to figure out exactly what I was, and whether I belonged in his territory. "He's friendly," Captain Storm assured me, which I doubted very strongly. Then the nightmare escalated. A human soldier, young male, walked into the kennel area carrying equipment. He wore thick gloves and moved with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He opened Maverick's enclosure and clipped a lead onto the creature's collar. "Morning, Captain," the soldier said. "Just taking Mav out for his training session." "Perfect timing," Storm replied. "Ambassador Vex'thaal here is observing our operations." The soldier nodded at me politely, like having an alien diplomat watching him handle a predator was completely normal. Maybe for humans it was. He led Maverick out into an adjacent training yard, and I followed at what I considered a safe distance, approximately 12 meters, maybe 15. The soldier ran through various commands, and Maverick obeyed with impressive precision. Sit, stay, come, down. Each instruction executed flawlessly, which only made the whole situation more unsettling. This wasn't a domesticated animal performing tricks. This was a killer following orders. Then things went wrong. The soldier removed one of his gloves and set it on the ground as part of some training exercise. I didn't fully understand. Maverick was supposed to ignore it, apparently, but the juvenile predator had other ideas. In one fluid motion, Maverick snatched the glove and took off running, his tail wagging in what I would later learn was canine for, "This is the best game ever." The soldier sighed. Just sighed, like this was a minor inconvenience rather than a predator rebellion. "Maverick," he called out, his voice firm but not loud, "drop it." And here's where my entire understanding of dominance hierarchies, pack dynamics, and interspecies relationships completely shattered. Maverick stopped running. He turned around, gloves still clenched in his jaws, and looked at the soldier. For maybe 3 seconds there was a silent negotiation happening, some kind of contest of wills between human and predator. Then Maverick's ears drooped, his tail lowered, and he dropped the glove onto the ground with a whine that sounded exactly like shame. "Good boy," the soldier said, walking over to retrieve his property. "Good drop." Maverick's tail started wagging again, all forgiveness and hope for approval. I stood there, my translator probably smoking from overwork, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. A human, An unarmed human with no visible weapons or defense systems had given a verbal command to an apex predator, and the predator had obeyed. Not because of fear, not because of pain conditioning, but because somewhere in the twisted evolutionary relationship between humans and these creatures, they developed something that looked disturbingly like respect. "Ambassador," Captain Storm's voice broke through my existential crisis. "You okay? You look a little pale." "Well, paler than usual. I mean, that creature," I managed, pointing at Maverick, who was now sitting politely and looking very pleased with himself. "That is a predator." "Correct. And your soldier commanded it with nothing but his voice." "Also correct. And it obeyed." "That's generally how training works." "Yes." I looked at Captain Storm, really looked at her, and saw something in her expression that made my blood run cold. She wasn't surprised by my reaction. She'd expected it. This whole demonstration had been deliberate. "Captain," I said slowly, "how many of these creatures does your military employ?" Her smile would have made a Krillnax warlord nervous. "Thousands, Ambassador. And that's just the military. Civilian humans keep them as companions too. There are approximately 470 million dogs on Earth alone. 470 million apex predators living with humans, in their homes, around their offspring. What kind of insane species," I whispered, "domesticates predators?" "The kind," Captain Storm replied cheerfully, "that used to hunt mammoth with stone tools. Now, shall we continue the tour? The tactical demonstration starts in 30 minutes, and you really don't want to miss watching our Special Forces team parachute in with their K9 partners." Parachute? With predators? By all 12 suns. The tactical demonstration turned out to be exactly as horrifying as Captain Storm's cheerful tone had promised, which is to say, it violated approximately 60% of what I thought I understood about physics, biology, and basic survival instincts. We stood in an observation tower overlooking a mock battlefield. Concrete structures simulated urban terrain, complete with buildings, vehicles, and what Storm called hostage scenarios. I'd seen similar setups on a dozen worlds. Standard military theater. Then the transport aircraft appeared overhead, flying low enough that I could feel the vibration through the tower's floor. "Here they come," Storm said, handing me magnification lenses. "Alpha team, 6 operators, 6 K9 partners." I raised the lenses to my eyes and immediately wished I hadn't. Humans were jumping out of the aircraft. That part I expected. What I didn't expect was that they were jumping in tandem with the predators, strapped to their chests in specialized harnesses. 12 figures plummeting toward the ground at terminal velocity, half of them covered in fur and teeth. "You're throwing predators out of aircraft," I said, my voice climbing several octaves higher than professional diplomacy recommended. "You've weaponized the concept of falling apex predators." "Well, when you put it like that, it does sound a bit dramatic," Storm admitted. "But wait until you see the insertion." The parachutes deployed with precision, and 12 figures drifted down onto the mock battlefield. The moment they touched ground, the human operators released their K9 partners, and the predators immediately went to work. Through my magnification lenses, I watched a dog named Titan, according to Storm's commentary, sprint toward a building at speeds that would shame most galactic racing vehicles. His operator followed, moving with practiced coordination. They reached a doorway, and Titan went through first. First, the predator entered the potentially hostile structure before the armed human. "Titan's checking for explosives," Storm explained, like this was perfectly reasonable. "He can detect 17 different types of compounds. Once he clears the room, Sergeant Rain goes in." I watched Titan emerge, tail wagging, and sit at the doorway, some kind of signal. Sergeant Rain entered, weapon ready, and the pair moved through the building like they'd been doing this since birth. Maybe they had. I was beginning to suspect human military training started in the womb. Across the battlefield, other human predator teams were executing similar maneuvers. One dog scaled a wall using specially designed ramps. Another detected a simulated enemy hiding behind a vehicle and alerted her partner with a specific pattern of barking. The humans responded to these predator signals with complete trust, adjusting their tactics based on what their four-legged partners communicated. "Captain Storm," I said, lowering the lenses because my hands were shaking, "these creatures are integrated into your military command structure." "Of course, they're soldiers, same as anyone else. They get ranks, medals, full military honors." "You give predators medals." "We give good soldiers medals, Ambassador. Species doesn't really factor into it." The demonstration continued. I watched a human named Corporal Vex, which gave me a moment of disorienting nominative confusion, coordinate with a dog called Juno, to extract simulated hostages from a building. Juno went in first, again with that pattern of the predator leading, assessed the situation, and returned to provide information through a series of behaviors I couldn't fully interpret, but Corporal Vex clearly understood perfectly. Then came the Apprehension demonstration, which I'm fairly certain violated several interstellar conventions on cruel and unusual tactics. A volunteer, wearing protective gear that made him look like a walking cushion, played the role of hostile combatant. He ran across the training field, and Storm gave a command into her radio. "Release K9." A dog named Axel launched from concealment like a missile with teeth. The volunteer tried to evade, running in zigzag patterns that would have confused most tracking systems. Axel didn't care. He closed the distance in seconds, leaped, and brought the volunteer down with the kind of precision strike that would make a Krillnax shock trooper weep with envy. The volunteer went down hard, and Axel maintained his grip, not aggressive, but absolutely immovable. The human operator arrived moments later, secured the simulated hostile, and gave a command. "Out." Axel released immediately and sat, tail wagging, waiting for praise that came in the form of enthusiastic words and physical affection. "Your soldier just petted an attack predator," I observed, my voice completely flat because my emotional processing had simply given up. "Positive reinforcement is crucial for maintaining operational effectiveness and unit cohesion," Storm replied, using official terminology to describe the fact that humans reward their predator soldiers with scratches behind the ears. The demonstration wrapped up with all 12 teams converging on a central objective, moving in coordinated patterns that spoke to hours of training and an almost telepathic level of communication between species. They cleared the structure, secured the area, and stood in formation, humans and predators side by side. Storm led me down from the observation tower to meet the teams up close, which I suspected was a test of some kind, probably measuring how quickly I'd flee or potentially faint. Sergeant Rain approached with Titan at his side. Up close, the predator was even more imposing, all muscle and focused energy. His tongue hung out in what I'd learned was thermal regulation, making him look absurdly friendly despite being able to crush my windpipe in approximately 2 seconds. "Ambassador," Ren said, saluting with his free hand while the other rested on Titan's head. "An honor to demonstrate for you, sir." "The honor is mine, Sergeant," I managed, keeping my eyes on Titan, who was studying me with that unnerving predator focus. "Your partner is very impressive." "Best there is," Rain said with obvious pride. "Titan saved my life 4 times in active deployment. Once detected an improvised explosive device that our electronic scanners missed completely. He's got instincts that technology can't match." Titan's tail wagged slightly at the praise, and I realized with growing horror that I was finding the predator's behavior endearing. This is what humans did. They didn't just domesticate predators, they made you like them. "How long have humans been forming these partnerships?" I asked Storm, desperate to understand the timeline of this insanity. "With dogs specifically. Archaeological evidence suggests at least 15,000 years, possibly longer. Some studies indicate it might be closer to 40,000 years. 40,000 years. Humans had been living alongside apex predators for 40,000 years. That was longer than the entire recorded history of 17 council species. And in all that time, I said slowly, the predators never betrayed you, never reverted to their base instincts. Rain and Storm exchanged glances, Some kind of human communication that didn't require words. There have been incidents, Storm admitted. Bad training, abusive handlers, stressful situations. But those are outliers. The relationship works because it's built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. We don't force dogs to serve. We train together, live together, trust each other. That's what makes it effective. Titan chose that moment to sneeze, a surprisingly undignified sound from such an efficient predator, and then shook his head vigorously, ears flapping. Rain laughed and scratched behind those ears. Bless you, buddy. I stood there, surrounded by humans and their predator partners, and felt my entire military assessment report crumbling into dust. How do you evaluate the combat effectiveness of a species that convinced apex predators to join their military? What threat rating do you assign to a civilization that can command killers with single words and have those killers whine in apology when they disobey? The Krillnaks had their moon-shattering formations. The Safari had their phase dancing. The Thorax had their feeding frenzies. But humans had something far more terrifying. They had the ability to turn the most dangerous creatures in their environment into loyal soldiers, companions, and friends. They'd looked at evolution's most successful predators and said, yes, but what if they loved us? And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Ambassador? Storm's voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. We have one more demonstration if you're interested. Our search and rescue division, dogs trained to locate survivors in disaster scenarios. You trained predators to save lives, I said, because at this point why not add one more impossibility to the list? Well, yeah, that's what partners do. I followed her to another section of the facility, watching Titan trot happily alongside Ren, and tried to formulate how I'd explain this to the Council. Humanity should be granted full Council membership immediately, not because of their weapons or their tactics or their technological capabilities, but because any species that could form genuine partnerships with creatures designed to kill them was operating on a level of social evolution the rest of the galaxy hadn't even conceptualized. Also, we should probably never ever make them angry, because they'd probably convince the predators to help with that too. Later that evening, as my shuttle prepared for departure, Captain Storm approached with a small package. A gift, she said, handing it over. Standard diplomatic courtesy. I opened it carefully. Inside was a stuffed toy shaped like a dog, soft and non-threatening, with a tag that read Earth's best friend. So you remember us fondly, Storm added with that dangerous human smile. I looked at the toy, then at the K9 facility in the distance, where I could hear Maverick barking enthusiastically about something. Captain Storm, I said carefully, I don't think I could forget humanity if I tried. That's the idea, Ambassador. As my shuttle lifted off, I clutched the toy and began composing my report. The Council needed to know what humanity had accomplished, even if they wouldn't believe it. Somewhere below, I imagined Maverick had found another glove to steal, and some human soldier was patiently teaching him to drop it. And the predator would obey, whining apologetically, because 40,000 years of partnership had taught both species something the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Trust isn't given, it's built. One command, one dropped glove, one scratch behind the ears at a time. Humans had mastered it. And honestly, the galaxy didn't stand a chance.